is how important it is to take proper decisions in the wind power plants in terms of supply, logistics, service supply. Now, looking at the position where we are, especially auxiliary services or support services, it's actually a field that we really have quite a good competency. And we've reached the worldwide standards in this field. Of course, we have a certain local content as well in terms of technology, in terms of the design. All the companies to decide, and also very professional companies that are working in this field. And of course, we all have experts with us and very successful again, individuals that they've joined us in this session. I will introduce myself, Ünal Terzi. 8 years ago, I got retired from TWEC, and now we're working as a freelance consultant. Hakan Kuşçu is from Borusan Logistics, and he is from Borusan Logistics Project and Transportation Manager. Now his CV. In 1984, graduated from Ankara University, Faculty of Communications, started his professional life at Maden'de transport company, especially as the regional director for, again, the transport. And at MHK Transport and Trade, founding partner, and since 2013, working at Borusan Logistics. And he's the director for the projects and transport. Yes, Hakan. Hello. Let me just say a couple of words about Borusan Group, what we're doing, what our capabilities are, and then about the project, and especially in wind, what we have. I just will show a couple of videos. Actually, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm sure that videos will speak for themselves. And for the logistics, again, what our approach is. So Borusan Logistics is under Borusan Holding. And you all know about Borusan Holding, one of the leading companies, 10,000 employees, $4.3 billion of annual turnover. And Borusan Logistics, under the holding, we have $555 million of annual turnover, one of the major logistics companies. 85% of our business is outside the group, 15% for the group companies. And we have 5 business units, and we've been experiencing for the last 45 years. So Turkey Logistics Services, Supply Chain Management, International Transport. We have a port, and as I'm representing, it is also ship leasing and project logistics. Of course, about project logistics, majority of the services can be offered. We have our warehouses, also internal, again, dispatch, and we have our ports. We actually can offer services in all. And organizations for the vessels, project consultancy, transport, energy, logistics, and also field delivery. For project logistics, under our organizations for the vessels and ships, maybe you don't know it pretty well, but we rent 330 vessels annually, and majority of those for export. Again, under projects we do this transport and also pipes, and especially long distance captains used, and we've been working with our colleagues who are full-time and working for long years with us. And in pipe transportation, again, we actually provide for loads. and mostly selecting the proper ports, risk analysis, and making the surveys, measurements, and again we can also have loading and also uh, as well. Of course, we use Borusan Holding as well. We have our group company, so we can offer a lot. Also, we have customs clearance services, especially for unloading. We have our own experience because, maybe separate from the other logistic companies, especially we actually get support for port services. Of course, customs clearance is another service that we offer. Well, we don't. It looks like we don't have too much investment, but as Borusan Logistics, mainly we focus on engineering investments, and especially not using our own vehicles all the time, but we offer services with our own vehicles, but at the same time, it requires quite huge investment, as you would appreciate. So we are also using our own suppliers when necessary. What is interesting in here is that, I don't know, for the wind energy, blade lifter adapter. It's a special transport system, and there actually was a project of Borusan Energy, and we designed that system previously. And now the vehicle is available, and we can offer it at different times to our customers. Maybe the most important thing is that, the blade width and length is getting more and more. And especially there are some difficulties in terms of the motorway transport, and you can possibly take them to different routes. But for our customers, the problem starts when you're actually on the field. Because the longer the blades are, you actually have to construct more and more roads. And this causes environmental impact, and it's also an economic loss as well, quite challenging to have transport of those. So the wing adapter is actually can well be used. The other thing is that, especially in the previous projects, there are certain roads already constructed, and of course, at that time, for example, the blade sizes were less, so they consider 40-50 meters for rotation of the blade. But with the new projects, now the roads are more narrow, and once there's actually, it's very easy to use it. It's environmentally friendly, it's economic, and it also facilitates the legal issues as well. Of course, in the last 3 years we've been doing project logistics, and 73 turbines shipped, and also 630 blades, and also in the tower, again for together including arrangement of the vessels, we have quite a good share in exports from Turkey, and 689 towers shipped so far. Well, especially we're just going through an economic challenges, and of course, considering these economic challenges, the investment cost and financing costs increased a lot in Turkey, so the investors should actually consider every single detail. I mean, when compared to the past, we actually have to focus more on saving the costs and try to have a cost reduction. I think it's actually a domino effect. I mean, as we have financial challenges for the investors, we also should have more control over the cost. Of course, there's a reduction in energy prices with more investments in the wind energy, so we actually should have an efficient way of handling everything. And as it is the logistics side, of course, some of the issues should be considered. I mean, especially for the investors, we have to make their life easier. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we can be more cost effective. To be able to do so, of course, safety is so important. safety at work. Health and safety at work is an important issue. So we are doing everything for the people. And if we give any harm to the people in what we are doing, it means that it's contradictory. I mean, it's the human factor that you should pay attention to. And once this is the case, you have to properly manage your processes, plan them properly. This is a must. I mean, if you succeed in doing everything and if you follow the rules, I mean, it means that that's actually quite a good pre-planning that you offer to your customer. I mean, if you, for example, waive from health and safety at work, it means that you are normal making a good planning. Of course, the investment cost is so high, also for us. I mean, in Turkey, considering 5 or 6 years ago, we actually have more number of vehicles, more number of cranes and everything. It's actually even increasing our investment costs. I mean, they are mostly import goods. For example, a standard, for example, long vehicle carrying a blade, it is, I think, 1,300,000 Turkish liras around that time. For tower, for example, the price of a vehicle that you use for transport of a tower, for example, I mean, especially at the bottom towers with those with high diameter, it can go up to 4 million Turkish liras. I mean, therefore, it should be planned properly, and we have to be able to use it as much efficiently as possible, so we can actually do it better. And once we actually, I'm sure that our colleague there would also mention about this, but the cranes that they use there, I'm giving Turkish liras in particular, because sometimes once you said euro, dollars look like they're actually cheaper. I mean, for example, together with the entire equipment, I think it is 30 million Turkish liras for installation. I mean, think about the 30 million Turkish liras of an equipment that you purchase. You train people to use these vehicles. It's actually quite a long period of time. I mean, of course, very high technology vehicles are used, high engineering, and the costs are so high. And on the top of this, you need well-qualified, trained people. I mean, at the logistics side, at project logistics, I mean, it's not possible to hire a driver who previously, for example, used a different vehicle, I mean, or an operator doing it. I mean, you know, same for my competitors. I mean, you actually should provide good training, and you have to invest money on this. You know, maybe the most important thing in here is all about the human health. I mean, because there are several risks for this. And of course, once you do everything properly, then you are just becoming competitive advantages and or time reductions that you will have. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Yes, Hakan is actually from a company who is using technology very well. Thank you for your contribution. 10,000 employees that you have actually. By the way, you also focus on also work and safety, health and safety at work. It's an important thing. Thank you very much for highlighting this topic. I mean, especially it's important. I mean, we now have new changes. Of course, technology is advancing, but it's really very important for us to give priority. Thank you for focusing on that. So, second speaker, Ali Sarıgöz from TWEC Company Limited, CEO, and his CV. Started his career in 2001 at Vestas, in Cyprus and Greece, and he joined the wind projects, general manager, and as the project director that he worked. After Vestas, again an investment company from Swedish at Calda, in Italy, in Romania, at different places that he worked, and today for Turkey, Middle East, the Balkans, and the Mediterranean, especially in capacity offering consultancy services. I'm CEO of this company, of TES Energy. And right now in Jordan and Istanbul, continues with his projects. Yes, the floor is yours, Ali.
Tamam, çalışıyor. Herkes hoş geldi. Kızılcanak Ünal Bey.
Welcome. Actually, my colleague provided me an introduction, but I actually will discuss what we're doing in project logistics. So it is why it's important to take the right decision on logistics and installation. That's the topic. In our opinion, it is not only the project, but logistics is also so important, because if you fail to do logistics, then you will not have any project in hand. So in a detailed manner, I wanted to focus on project logistics and the situation in Turkey.
Nasıl çalışıyordu? Tamam. Türkiye'deki projelerin
These are the geographical distribution of the projects in Turkey, and it's mainly Aegean region, Marmara, and around Hatay. And for the power plants to be installed there, I mean, it's not possible to do it in a night. I mean, you have to do a proper planning, you have to, I mean, we have a good project design, how we are just going to install them, how they can be carried. And in 2001, once I started to work at Vestas, the blades were 35 meters or so. For the towers, 25 meters. And it was much easier to do transport at that time. But today, I mean, everything is bigger now. And of course, considering the infrastructure in Turkey, you have to take the necessary measures at the beginning of the project. Now, what I'd like to mention in here is that where does the logistics start? I mean, where the turbines are coming in, where they actually have to be carried. As you can see in here, the Aegean, Marmara, and Mediterranean ports. It is just going to be transported to the regions I showed you on the slide. There's local content in Turkey, local manufacturing, therefore especially the structure in Turkey, as you all know, is mainly mountainous, and it's actually much more challenging when compared to Europe. And as you can see, Marmara for the project area mainly. The other thing is that once we started in 2001, the sizes of the turbines started with 20 tons, but today it is 120 tons. For example, width of, for example, the blade, it is 74 meters. And of course, it's not an easy task to transport them. And our colleagues already discussed. You need special vehicles for this, and everything is ready for now. But of course, about how to use them, where they are necessary, I mean, you have to analyze it properly beforehand. And when we are supposed to do this, we are supposed to do this once we identify where we are going to install the power plant. So you have to have a survey, and you have to make an analysis. For example, Aegean region, it will be transporting tower, I'll be transporting blade. How am I supposed to do this? I mean, what are the measures that we actually have to take? So, you know, Borusan, for example, as discussed, you can use the blade adapter, but you have the tower. For example, the towers were 4 meters, and now 5. And you actually have to go under the bridges, and it must be actually at a weight. It was 60 tons that the bridges can carry, but now it is actually 20 tons. So Especially before you start the project, you actually have to have a good preparation and try to understand whether the project is feasible at that region or on that site or not. So it's a 75 meters long, as you can see. It's quite long, really.
Burada ilk ne yapmamız gerekiyor?
So what is the very first thing that we should do? For the turbines coming from abroad, you need to identify the ports. What type of a vessel to carry it? Again, we have to work for this. Borsan has experience on this, but the investors are not experienced on this. So actually, it is much appropriate for the companies to receive some services from us. If you're going to carry the equipment from abroad, which port to use? If it is the shortest distance, it would be good, of course, so you can reduce also the cost in the project. For example, what we check for, the depth of the berth, the appropriate vessel, and you actually have to identify this. Then, how about the unloading operations at the port, as you can see in here? Whether the port has its own crane, we need a crane from outside or not, how we can do the unloading. After unloading, is there a warehouse around there? And as you can see, it is quite narrow areas. I mean, whether it is possible to cross it, I mean, the engineers should go there and do the measurement and try to understand how they can carry. So you have to work on it. And here, as you can see, 74-meter long blade. You can see out of the port, and you see how many trees will be cut down. How is it possible that we can actually carry it with a normal trailer? As, for example, you can use the adapter that our colleague mentioned, but it's easy in short distances. But let's say from the port to the site 400 kilometers. With such an adapter, you cannot carry it from here to there. I mean, the normal trailer, you can carry it to a short distance, and in the challenging site, you can use the adapter. I mean, probably you can only use it at certain places, right? Yes. Yes, of course. I mean, especially from close to the site. For example, the site is mostly in the mountainous region. There are mostly villages there, narrow areas that you actually have to cross. But, of course, especially from a big port, you cannot use it from the very start. I mean, you have to analyze them properly and do the necessary things. Bridges, as I told you. Now we have actually 6 meters height, but in the past it was 4.5 meters. But now our height that should cross under the bridge is, for example, 6 meters. So at the beginning of the project, it's very important. So, as you can see, it's important to do this clearance. Likewise, longest, for example, section. As you can see, the red one trimmed, and several trees will be cut down there. And it's not possible for you to cut it down on your own. You have to get approval. And to be able to get the approval, you actually have to show the survey at the beginning of the project. You have to identify it, because if you do it later, it would be a problem. I mean, you may fail to get the approval, so you cannot move on with your project. Again, mountainous area, especially forests. That's the simulation. We check whether it's possible to transport the blades or not. And that is 400 kilometers by land from the port to the site, project site. I mean, think about it, 10 turbines, 40 megawatt of a project. It would make 1 turbine carried by 15 trucks. 15 times 10 will make 150 rounds, tours that we should make. And to do it problem-free, you need a plan at the beginning of the project.
ufak kasabalardan, şehirden
especially once you have to go through the cities or small towns.
4 metreyi geçirmeniz gerekiyor.
You have to, for example, take a 74-meter long equipment here. Those in red. Marked in red.
Oradaki binalar yıkılacak.
I mean,
Bu yolu kullanmak
you have to demolish the buildings there if you want to use it.
bir hazırlık yapılırsa
But of course, you will find an alternative, or you can actually use an accessory road from outside the town, and you will avoid these problems. You may have to purchase building. The municipalities may not let you do that. What I'm trying to say is that once you decide for the project, what is important is actually to prepare all your reports and check whether the project is feasible or not.
taşıyabilir miyiz? Veyahut da oldu ki karar verildi.
Let's assume you found out that it's feasible to do so, but what's going to be the cost of transport? You know, you have to purchase 3 houses, you will cut down trees. There is of course a certain cost.
Toplam maliyetini
And this will increase the total cost of the project.
orada kurulup da
And
başarılı
therefore,
yapılabilir mi?
I have to check whether it's going to be a profitable project for me.
Hangi dönemlerde ve ne zaman
At what point we should start doing the logistics planning?
bu proje biraz önce anlattığım gibi projeye karar verdiğiniz
As I told you,
proje sahası
if you're going to have a project site at a certain region, right at the beginning of the project,
yapılması doğru.
you actually have to do all the feasibility studies.
Nasıl projeye geliştiren arkadaşlar işte bu bölgede şebeke
For
var mı?
example, just like at the beginning of the project, you check whether there is a grid, a transmission grid next to the project site or not, just like they're doing the calculation. Logistics is also the same. I mean, the attention that you pay to, again, have to connect it to the grid is exactly the same with your logistics planning.
Çünkü proje geliştireceğiniz zaman
Of course, when you are supposed to develop projects, there is actually a preliminary cost. You decide for the project, and you have to make wind measurement.
kurulacak ölçüm
And-
masrafı fiyatı işte 80-100 bin.
Let's say, for example, it is 80 to 100,000 Turkish liras for the wind measurement investment. I mean, as you all know, you cannot say I can do it later. I mean, same, just like you just invest for wind measurement, same should be for logistics planning as well. So,
Lojistik
first you have to check the logistics and then start investing on the others. So you have to understand whether it's possible for me to carry that turbine there. Of course,
riskos var mı bu taşıma?
we have to check whether there is any risk of transport, any impact on the environment, any likelihood of an accident. So everything should be analyzed properly beforehand.
Ve boşuna harcamış o zamanı da
Otherwise, it will be waste of time and money.
bu izinleri almak için mesela sahada taşıyamadığınız inşaat izinleri.
For example, you apply for construction permit about the enlargement extension that you have to make on the road.
Hazır değilse
If your report is not, for example, ready, even if you apply for this, it would be wrong. I mean, you cannot get, for example, building and construction permit as well. You would need that because they're asking for this.
ve bu lojistikteki yapılmış olan çalışmalar montajda etkisi var mı?
It also has an impact on installation.
Taşıyacağınız sürümünü
So to install the turbine that you transport, you actually will be using cranes, and so it is 650 tons. Just like you're carrying the turbine, you at the same time should transport the crane. There are also difficulties on this. So in the planning that you perform, you have to make it proper. And on the next slide, I will show you how we plan for it.
elimizde harita var.
Now we have the
Tüm
site map.
belirlendi.
We identify the
Bu bölgede
locations of the
taşıma
turbines.
ekipmanı
And for the equipment to be transported, whether we have to unload them directly to the site, or will there be actually a storage point and it will be installed there first and then erected to the project site. You check for example, whether there will be any risk of accident or so. The problem in here could be that it's quite a huge platform, and you may also fail to get a permit for this. So it means that separately you would need a storage area, and then you have to carry it for the second time. And if you do so, actually it will be higher, that there could be the cost of any damage and accident. So for project planning, again, logistics is important. Whether I can properly transport it or not, it is at the second phase that all the platforms that I will use.
daha önce 20'ye çarpı 20
You know, it was 20 times 20 meters in the past, but today, now with 74 meters of blade length, it's at least 60 times 80. It means you will be occupying more area, and you have to do something about it. And while getting the construction permit, whether the forest authority there will let you do this, or maybe the municipality, the local government will give approval for this or not. So you first have to do the planning and then apply for these types of licenses and permits. So
duruma göre, platforma göre ve yolun
depending on the platform,
yapılacak sahadaki yolun eğimi de önemli.
even the inclination is important. For example, for the transport companies, over 10% sometimes they are saying will not transport, will not carry, it will be a risk.
Öyle oldu mu ona göre de platformun
Once this is the case, it means that you have to redesign your platforms.
bir resim örnek olarak sağdan nasıl
Here, how
platform oluşuyor?
we have our platforms on the site.
Bir yer yapmış oraya, düz bir alan.
It's a flat surface, as you can see.
Bu söylemiş olduğumuz raporlamayı yapılırsa bizim şeylerimiz nedir? Avantajlarımız.
What are the benefits of such a detailed preparation beforehand?
Yapıldıktan sonra
And once we have the survey,
saat teklifinde de ne kadar
also you will understand the land to be excavated, land extension required. Of course, there's a cost for this, but considering the other costs, logistics planning cost is actually pretty low. So you're making a preliminary work, you check whether it's feasible to have an installation there or not, and at what cost it would be for the logistics side.
aynı şekilde bu yapılan çizimlerde de raporlarda
Likewise,
inşaat isimleri de
you also can possibly use it when you apply for construction permit, because you actually have the final version of what you'll be doing, so you can get a construction permit easily.
yapacağınız tarifatı da
And you also will provide information about what type of a damage you'll give to the environment. There could be a private property there, or it could be the property of the municipality. So you'll not cause any trouble, and you can do a good planning, so you will not actually intrude to someone else's property.
üzerinden geçersiniz ve sizin önünüzü oradaki bölgedeki halk bloke eder.
As you know, sometimes there's actually reaction of the local people,
Sizi mahkemeye
and they can sue you.
birçok sorunu önden
And so you probably will solve many problems beforehand. What does that mean? You will save money,
başarılı bir proje.
and you will have save time, and you will have a successful project execution by minimizing the risks,
Yatırımcı için
which is actually something pleasing for the investors.
benden bu kadar.
That's all for me.
Daha sonra oldu o zaman. Teşekkür ederim.
Questions will be later. Okay then, thank you.
Ali Bey, lojistik planlama
Okay, Mr. Sarıgöz explained us why it is necessary to do logistic planning. It is important, of course, to do necessary designs, whether infrastructure allows for these designs, the necessary permits from the relevant authorities. These are all included in the package. Of course, these are the initiatives that should be taken before starting to work in the field. Some preliminary analysis should be performed. I mean, it should be done at the time of decision for executing the project in a given area. Mr. Sarıgöz will also be available for your questions if you have any at the end of the session.
Üçüncü konuşmacımız Sayın Levent.
The third speaker of the session will be Mr. Levent İshak,
Sistemlerinde
working as service director at Vestas Wind Energy Companies. Born in Trabzon in 1973, he graduated from İzmir 9 Eylül University, Department of Engineering. As a mechanical engineer, he graduated from university. Following his factory maintenance services, he started working for Ares Wind Energy Company as the team leader. So he entered into the wind energy sector. In 2013, after the establishment of Vestas Turkey, he joined the company as logistics director. Currently, he's also continuing as service director. And the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues. Welcome to the session. I have no presentation as printed, and this has been my habit lately. I want this to be in the form of a chat. I will briefly speak about my experiences, and on the other hand, I will give you some information as to what Vestas has been doing into this. But the main title, I think, is how important is maintenance, and the answer to that is extremely important. You would know, I mean, since yesterday we've been speaking about project finance, how the projects are to be executed. There are two pillars of project finance, CAPEX and OPEX. And OPEX, operational cost, is a part of the finance cost. In other words, when you make a deal for the turbine sales, including all these risks, you make a prediction of all these risks. But at the same time, the maintenance process, which is roughly 20 years, throughout the theoretic lifetime of the project, you should have an idea about your potential expenditures on maintenance and what you'll get in return. Maintenance, why is it important alone? There is a study that was done like 2 years ago, and there was a photograph included in that study. I never forget about it, and it basically says a normal family drives a car for about 4,500 hours, and at the end of this time it will become a scrap. But for the turbines, 4,500 hours would correspond to 6 months. But we don't throw it away in 6 months, and we make it work for 20 years. But will it do it alone, by himself, by itself? No, of course, there are some requests that we have to make, that we have to meet. And what is maintenance? What is service? Service, above all, is a correct use of resources with correct prices to have some implications over the outcomes. There are three important pillars. One is know-how, I mean, to be knowledgeable about the equipment. The second, equipment, and the third, human. And the three pillars together would make a value into what you're doing, essentially. Infrastructure is mostly relevant to the supply chain, including warehouse management. Let me give you some examples. Like 10 years ago, when I started working for Vestas, we didn't have a warehouse or a service vehicle in Turkey. So we started from scratch. Now we have a warehouse of 3,900 square meters, and we have 3 of those warehouses. We have 68 vehicles dedicated for services, and of course we have human resources to be able to manage that. In other words, we have a supply chain behind it. What is know-how? Know-how, I think, is key. Vestas, at a global scale, has been providing maintenance services in an area more than 90,000 square meters, and it is the largest maintenance company in the sector. And the reasons I've been talking about are the essence of what we're doing, and I will give you some of the figures in a minute. When we first started in Turkey from scratch, and now we have 130 technicians, and our activities are still ongoing. And the second pillar is the know-how. It's relevant to 62,000 turbines data with relevant survey and analysis to be performed to expect the predicted failures of the equipment, as a result of which we'll be creating correct timing schedules and correct team and planning for the maintenance programs. This is, I think, the core of everything that we're doing in maintenance. But who does it? Human resources. Human factor is critical, of course, as Vestas in the maintenance activities. Investing in human is extremely important because it will be human to make a change, and it will be human beings, to install the systems, to run the systems, to make them work smoothly. There's an example that we're quite proud of. We used to get some technical support from abroad when we were first established. Now, Turkey has been providing services to Chile, Mexico, Jordan, Pakistan, Spain, France. Turkish technicians are now going there to give active training to these countries. So Vestas Turkey is not only concentrating on concentrating in Turkey and local, but we're already exporting our expertise. Thanks to what? Thanks to this value that we are attaching to our people. 10 days ago, we started an operation center in Bandırma, and it provides online training together with simulations on the turbine side, delivering turbine maintenance. Experienced and well-trained people are supporting our colleagues to improve quality. So I'm very proud to say that we have 3 teams working in Mexico, and they are putting a lot of pressure on us to ask for 2 more teams. This is really giving us a lot of pride, and this is in return for the investments we're making in people. Another example that I would like to give to you is a very common mistake, and you can see it anywhere. Turbine stops, and people just start the way they are to intervene, and they don't have the necessary equipment. There is no solution. What to do? We'll go back and pick up all the other tools and just come back to the turbine. The cost of this scenario is roughly 2,500 euros, forgetting about a single tool. Maybe in the warehouse, costs you more than 2,000 euros. You have a wonderful turbine, and there is a very good wind that is going on, and unfortunately you cannot repair it. The cost of it per day will be about $5,000. Just speaking with the figures of the day, converting them into TL, and of course just basing it into the risk scenarios like liquidity, financing, so on and so forth. The bottom line is just big figures. So what to do in maintenance? Number 1 is to have predictive maintenance. That turbine should never stop unless we want it to be. If we wait on it breaks down, it's just repair work. No, it's not. It's just predictive way of flowing in information and data that we can intervene into that turbine at the time when there is no wind. We will succeed on it. Otherwise, it's always like fire extinguishing, and extinguishing fire is a costly thing. It's just very costly business. At the very point, of course, we still have gaps to fill. It will always be there, but as Vestas Turkey, it's really giving us a lot of pride just to see what point we have got into in becoming a preferable country meaning our people being preferred by other colleagues around the globe. Uh, Distinguished members of the panel are our also collaboration sites, and I mean, everything that you keep talking are quite valid into daily practice. This is totally about knowledge and know-how management. Being aware of these risks, I don't want to intimidate you, but what you don't know would intimidate you. With a good planning, believe me, it's very possible to perform very successful projects. We've been speaking about YEKTEM, I mean, so far, about the pricing. Relatively relaxed, it's a good time, but there are fields that are no longer YEKTEM fields. They're playing for the market pricing. Fixed price guarantee. And when you're just playing to the market, of course, there would be some differences in terms of the maintenance format that you're going to do. A simple example, like for instance, over a weekend you are doing some maintenance and the electricity price is under 1 cent. And there, even sometimes the wind that you're producing there wouldn't help you. So the bottom line is, it's the commercial model and the maintenance model that should match, that should make sense. I mean, I think these two models should also be hand in hand. Together with these pricing levels, together with these projection levels, I think every kilowatt hour matters. So as to make ourselves better, please, all stakeholders, share with us your ideas, your comments, because I see some faces who are our clients. They keep contributing to our development. But I'm asking all the stakeholders in the market, please just guide us as to how we will do it better. And we expect some positive feedback from you as well. Thank you.
çok teşekkür ediyoruz Levent.
Thank you, Mr. Ishak.
Bakım
Mr. Ishak provided us a perspective of Vestas company, and congratulations for your approach. One point that was interesting is that you're being demanded from other parts of the world. I mean, your people are being demanded from other parts of the world. Well, I remember that 6-7 years ago, it was barely possible to find technical staff to perform maintenance and repair works on the field. Exactly. So in these congresses, we used to discuss a lot about the need for this well-trained staff. And it's pleasing to hear that there has been this evolution in the sector. Now, as the last speaker of the session, Mr. Albayrak will be speaking. He is the regional manager, Ankara regional manager of Hareket Project Company, an interesting CV because it says since 2011 has been working for Hareket Project, and he will be pleased to speak about the current status and challenges of the sector. You're given an extra 5 minutes, sir, now that you will speak about challenges.
Hoş geldiniz tekrar.
Welcome. I would like to thank Mr. Serdar as the president of TWEC, and of course our panel and you, of course, for your time. I also would like to thank the association for organizing this important congress and kindly inviting us over this panel. My name is Mert Albayrak. I am the regional manager of Hareket Project for the last 70 years. I will be presenting you the advantages and disadvantages of the sector. My presentation is quite long, though. I'll make it briefer for you. I wish to refresh your knowledge, and you know, the service that we are providing is heavy and sizey load transportation. We are mostly concentrating on renewables and petrochemistry, heavy loading, transportation, and assembly works. Also historical buildings and dockyards, ships are our expertise as well. We have valuable 450 colleagues working in our team. As previously discussed, there is no problem purchasing any equipment if you have good leasing, but it is really the challenge to have and harbor, of course, valuable team and colleagues in your team. This actually has been a challenge, I mean, in keeping in a fixed state of the human resources, which causes us an extra cost. Extra equipment, I will skip this because it's a lot of technical details, but roughly we have 76 towers and we have 66 transport vehicles and certifications. You're all familiar with it.
Çok kısa dediğim gibi şirketin
And briefly, I would like to speak about some projects of the company. This is Antalya Expo Center. You can see we also had an important major system in Antalya Expo Center. The tower was built. Ali Ağa Sokar project, and almost you can speak about 502 tons of vacuum tower transported that also had a 55-meter height. And in the dockyards, we are transporting yachts and motor yachts. Also, they are installed and transported down to the sea. Visuals are interesting, maybe the photographs, so I want to show you these photographs as well. We are based in Istanbul. Also, we have regional offices in Ankara, Mersin, Izmir, also international offices. And now, of course, this maybe this will be the only aspect that we cannot be humble about, because it is also a field of expertise and also revenue for us. So far, we have achieved major capacity, reaching more than 2,860 megawatts of installed capacity. In some of these projects, only crane service, but in total, we are beyond 2,800,000. And you can see that we've transported turbines from the destination to our route to the final destination. How can we assist you? Of course, throughout the project, there are aspects that are musts and will be followed by the requirements of the project owner. We have more than 20 engineers and technical people. Unless we resolve the problems on the tabletop, it would be impossible to resolve all these problems, believe me. So first, the problem is to resolve these issues on a desktop basis. You can see nacelle transport, wing transport schedules. As Ali and Hakan spoke, you can see the configurations and the vehicles for transporting our wings, and you can see once we are finished with this, a road workup should be finished. At the time of making a preliminary work, all of our colleagues are completing the studies on the road. I mean, they make a presentation. Of course, we deliver this presentation to the client, what kind of problems there can be on the way to this turbine site. Most of the time, the studies, the work on the site may not correspond to the real conditions. Finally, we make a dummy test. It's as if you just use a steel dummy on the transporter to check if you can pass the road with the wing on. So the study is presented to the client, and if there is any chance of, bypass or revision, we complete the final aspect with the contribution of the client. Again, you can see any problem, what needs to be done on the site. This is how the transport should be supposed to be. And this is what it's not supposed to be. This is not desirable. If you don't follow a proper study or analysis in advance, this may be the case. Of course, we try and help in such cases. I'm sure that you would agree with me. I mean, there's something which we're suffering a lot from. You know, the prices of the vehicles, the prices of everything. I mean, a transporting company who has only a few vehicles or cranes will also be present in the wind business. And of course, the prices can be quite low, lower than your level when they are charging to the clients. Of course, our cost would not be the same as, I mean, such a company, because this is a unique material that you are transporting. And when speaking about the transport, of course, they are asking for the insurance cost, $5 million. And if something happens to me, my coverage is $5 million for insurance coverage. There are reasons why the prices would be high. And there are, of course, aspects that the turbine operators should be knowledgeable about. I'm sure that you're suffering from this as well. Yes, price matters, but of course quality matters more, professionalism matters more, and this is something that our business owners should always consider. This is again another case. You can see what kind of an accident can be caused on the roads. And as I said at the outset, first, the operative aspect should be resolved on a desktop basis, because we are familiar with the weight of the items that we need to transport. We should also know the distance, so we define the capacity of the lifting equipment, and of course we get ready for the field work, and this is the final result.
Burada da aynı şekilde kule montajlarından sonra rotor yağı da çatıyor.
You can see the rotor, step 1.
Step 2. Step 3.
Step 2 and 3 for rotor assembly. These are the must aspects. I mean, if you know about the sector, you would know these aspects. I mean, these are the must aspects. These are some photographs from the transports. Of course, not all the time we're using the roads, but sometimes ferries may also be used to transport the wings. What challenges us the most? In the supply and logistic aspect, there are some things that would challenge us the most. Of course, the size of the equipment that we are transporting. Number one, I mean, this is so interesting that people are taking photographs when they see us transporting it. The diameter of the tower would be up to 5.5 meters, and the road that will be used to transport these equipment will have to be studied in advance. If possible, we are doing some bypasses. These are all cost items. Of course, we are trying to make it easier for us and for the clients. There may be some field problems. The braid lifters, for instance, sometimes we can also use them. But what challenges us, number one, is why are we present in that site? Because there is wind and there is a wind potential, but it may also be a disadvantage. You have to be quick in your assembly works. And of course, the client wants us to complete the assembly and to get some financial benefit. But unfortunately, most of the time, because of weather conditions, it will not be a very fast process. And again, for the roads, for minimum repair, because cutting a tree, I mean, it may sound easy, you know, it takes a long time for a tree to grow, but cutting is, 2 minutes. We try to be sensitive to avoid, if possible, any one tree on our road. Sometimes on the way within the construction site, we may have some other challenges we try to overcome within ourselves, of course. And there can be road-associated problems most of the time. And if the problem gets too challenging, we'll try and find solutions within our own team. And sometimes we're even building bypass roads. In winter conditions, of course, we may have other difficulties because this equipment also is very heavy, so as to avoid any depression at the time of passage, we may have to take measures. Most of the time we're crossing from villages, small towns, and the local people may sometimes criticize but sometimes like it, and our habit is, if we cause any disturbance to the local people, we should do them a favor, like, painting a school, making some money donations. I mean, most of the time we go to the, local leaders, ask for any family or any household that is needy. So this way we are trying to compensate for what we're doing, and also we try and explain to them how valuable the job we're doing is. You do see a list of our references. Most of these companies were visited abroad, and our teams were trained abroad. We're in charge of making installations for these companies. 75 people is the core staff. I would never have the luxury of terminating their employment contract. 75 core plus, okay, sometimes we go up to 150. This is how the team is working. Of course, most of them, or at least the supervisors, are engineers. All checks are done under their supervision, and key turn process completed after their final checks. This is again torquing, you can see, and again our own team. Sometimes, I don't know if it happens to you, but sometimes when I see some nice view, I keep asking myself, is it worth it? Because, some trees are cut, but at least it's pleasing that we try to minimize the amount of damage that is given to the environment. Again, some photographs. Of course, there are challenging conditions. In most projects, either we're given a pad area to pile up the items, or we're given a stockyard. But mostly, you will have the chance of putting on floor the rotor and just level it up. Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully, this has been useful for you. Thank you.
Mert Bey'e çok teşekkür
Thank you. Now, at the offices of the wind investors, there are always two photos on the walls. One is actually the photo of a license taken after quite challenges, and the other photo is mostly the photo of a turbine, including the nature view. Of course, it is the logistics and installation process that is so important. It's a bit difficult. People do not must put. Sometimes in engineers' rooms you have the installation photos, but really it's very important. I mean, this infrastructure issue. But at this point, especially in the last 6 or 7 years, we're really proud of what we're doing in Turkey. I mean, of course, there's commercial economic contribution as well, but of course, know-how and experience. We also start contributing to the countries in the region. It's very important because we actually really offer good solutions to the industry. I mean, it's actually a service that we import totally from abroad, but now we do export. So congratulations, all the players in the industry. So you share your experience with us, the panelists. Of course, we have limited time. If you wish, we can have the Q&A if there is any question. Hello. It's not a question, but as it is a conversation opened up by Matt, I just will make an advice, a suggestion, a support maybe. I'm from about Turkey. I'm the sales manager. I'm actually the regional manager because we're also out of the region. I actually had the chance to know some of you, but not all of you. We have a product, and our target in here is, I mean, I enjoyed TWEC a lot, by the way, this congress. The most important that you all talk about is how we can reduce the cost. And even the logistics, which is actually one part of the entire process. We have already delivered a presentation to you. And in all the photos that you showed to us, all the mobile cranes are Liber. We are just trying to create an internal competition, and recently, for over 100 meters of turbines, it's actually a tower crane that we invented. It's actually a product with no competitor, almost 125 tons and up to 95 meters without any fixation. And once it is fixed, it can go up to over 200 meters. Nordex, Vestas, Siemens, they're using it everywhere in the world, and we have huge experience worldwide. But the capacity in Turkey has increased recently so much. And especially you as the transport and the investors of the mobile cranes, I can say it actually stopped you because it is 4 or 5 billion euros that we are speaking about. I mean, for the cost of a proper tower crane, it's just a contribution, and I'm the tower crane regional director. So in half cost, we can complete installation in 3 days. We will cut down last trees because it is 3.5 to 1.5 meters. It's all with the concrete anchorage. I don't know if you get. I actually want to put something on the slide, if possible. Did they give approval for this? No. Okay, then I couldn't market myself as advertisement, I suppose. So my request from you is, it's half cost. With a crane of half cost, actually we can cut down last tree. And of course it will be a great advantage. So one day I would be more than happy to, join you and introduce the product. Thank you.
Koray Bey, biz Liber'le görüştük.
We talked to Liber,
Teknolojisini yakından takip ediyoruz.
and we're closely following your technology. And I'm very happy that you reduced the price now, because there's actually a huge difference between what you're telling now and what you told us 1.5 years ago. I hope you can make those prices more competitive. Yes, of course, we can talk to you. Of course, the Turkish market is important, and we actually have huge number of cranes in Turkey. We're not at the crane side, but those companies are not only my competitors, but I've also been in the sector for 33 years, and some of them are my brothers, and I'm brother of some of them. Of course, it's very important to make use of the available products. In the Turkic Republic, it's mostly leased. Especially the investments especially should be made much more efficient. That's the most important thing. I mean, the tower crane, yes. Of course, everyone in the industry knows about its benefits, and we also talk to our customers. And we also at the energy company of the Borusan Holding, we talked about it. If there are new developments, please talk to us. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure that will show an interest, but as I told you, I never thought you would reduce the numbers that much. I wish I knew beforehand. I think you'll be much more competitive once you reduce the prices more. Any other question? Hello, Gamze. Thank you to the panelists.
Benim sormak istediğim soru, bu lojistik konusunda Harcan Oğlu ve ortaya çıkan
In the field of logistics, we actually end up with very complicated issues, and we're always looking for some solutions. But we also speak about an innovative approach about air transport. I read something on the internet. Do you think it is feasible right now, air transport? I'm sure you know more about this. So any idea about air transport?
Yani dünyada işte bu kanat boyları uzadıkça
Now, as we have longer blade sizes, yes. I guess Vestas actually has some studies on air transport by Zeppelin, by air balloon, but I'm not sure if actually it will work. At Fortress, by helicopter, we thought whether it would be an option or not.
bayağı ciddi çalıştık.
And we worked hard on it. We don't have too many
Olacak diye bir şey değil ama orada
studies. It doesn't seem to be feasible now, but I think it's the manufacturers that should do something about it. I mean, we are at the logistics side. I mean, especially the manufacturers of the equipment manufacturers. I mean, our suppliers. They're working very closely with the manufacturers. So while selecting the equipment for these things,
taşıyabilmesinde olaylı olmasına dikkat edin.
I mean, we have to pay attention that whether it's an approved system or not. I mean, one single logistics company or one single manufacturer, a trailer manufacturer or Zeppelin, for example, airship, only one manufacturer will not suffice. Also, the equipment manufacturers should work together and think about it. Once they told me we will carry it with the helicopter, I said, the helicopter is on the air, but the blade is rotating. I mean, you need aerodynamic work for this.
Araçları belli bir hızdan
I mean,
yukarı çıkartabilmek
because
için Formula 1'de
in Formula One races, for example, a wind tunnel concept is worked on for high speeds. I'm sure there will be developments.
konuya ben size biraz anlatayım. 2006 yılında
In 2006, Vestas, for the third time, carried blade with the helicopter. It was 45 meters, and mainly
9-10 ton
I think it was 9 or 10 tons. And
bir tane Amerikan helikopteri
there was one American helicopter, Ericsson,
kanatları 74
and for 74 meters long blades,
kilosu
and its weight is 15-20 tons. And therefore, the higher that you go up, you will need stronger helicopters. Therefore, today it's only the Russian Mi-26 helicopter. Nothing else will work. And so high risk, of course. Why? Because you actually need a landing platform, and the cost of the helicopter is $300,000-400,000 US to bring them to the site. I mean, it must be such a good land that you can actually use, and you have to then consider it as feasible. There are, of course, opportunities and options for this, but it all depends on cost, as always. Thank you.
Tabii buyurun.
Tabii ki maliyetler
Yes, of course.
yurt taşımacılığında sarf
But in land transport, we also have huge costs. We will reduce that. I never thought it would be helicopter only, airship. I don't know, maybe airships or Zeppelin.
yapılmakta. Ama bu noktada aslında
But of course, at this point, especially, there must be a demand from the investors, so people can invest on that new technology, so can better be integrated. So I think maybe they actually have to be more active on this. I mean, all turbine manufacturers are very active. I mean,
Karayolu taşımacılığının 10 veya 20 katı
it is going to be 10-20 folds more than the cost by land
bir kanatta.
in one blade only. Yeah, you do the maths.
Bugünkü şartlarda
And therefore,
arkadaşlar anlatıyor.
as our colleagues have been discussing it, all investors would say, let's make more money because the prices are already down and we cannot make money. We have the foreign exchange crisis, interest rates are high and so on. You know, the investors will invest just to make money, so we need to wait a little bit longer. Any further question?
Dinger from Sekim Energy, Austria. I will place my question in English. In Austria we don't have any sea, but in Turkey you have, and I was positively surprised that you're talking a lot about offshore wind energy at this conference. So my question is from a supply chain point of view, both from logistics and from maintenance, service, everything. How you provide these services for the offshore plants, or how will you provide? Are you ready already for this?
Özetle
We will be ready. It's not clear yet. We are working on
şeyi de
for
sorun
logistics
Türkçe olarak
part.
özetleyelim de offshore'a hazır mısınız diyor. Offshore'da lojistiğe hazır mısınız diyor. Evet.
For logistics part, we are working on. We are trying to reply the customers' questions. We have pre-works, but it's not clear yet what's going and when. I know from Hareket they are working on it. My competitor, I am working on it. We will be ready. We can say that.
Türkçe olarak cevabını
offshore'la ilgili yani müşterilerimizden gelen sorular dolayısıyla
I mean, our customers are also asking for that. So, but there are of course different technical challenges in the offshore. I mean, also related to the regulation in Turkey. I mean, of course, everyone is doing some work, but there's nothing finalized yet. I mean, not finalized enough yet to do a solid, sound investment. But everyone actually has ready for documentation and everything. Thank you.
başka
Any further question? Hello. Thank you for your contribution. I'm from Hacettepe University. I am an environmental engineer last year. Renewables is pretty promising in Turkey. And as a student at the environmental engineering faculty, I'd like to have my master's degree. But our professors are not interested on this topic. I mean, for example, wind turbines, as Matt stated, is operationally very challenging in terms of the installation. It's not that much feasible. So my request from you is maybe you can encourage the universities to actually work on this field. I mean, do you think there could be some studies? I mean, my actual question is, as a student of an environmental engineer, it is either wind or solar that I'd like to have a master's degree. I mean, do you think I will make money from wind and solar in the future? Thank you.
ben bir iki şey söyleyeyim.
Maybe a couple of things.
Önceki oturumda
In the previous session, before lunch, you know, we've given you nice figures. One perspective is that, first of all, it is either wind or solar energy or renewables in general. These are sustainable. It's actually a must in Turkey. It's not an option for Turkey. I mean, we have to. We have to use renewables, no doubt about this. So we need trained people on renewables. Environment is one side of it.
benim şahsi görüşüm
My personal opinion is that
doğru yerde olduğumuzu düşünüyorum.
I think we are on the right track.
İçinde bulunduğumuz bir duraklama süreci var.
Maybe it looks like we're a bit in a recession, but I have full faith that we will overcome this soon, and I get we'll reach our targets very soon. And as I told you in my presentation, we need qualified people. It's extremely important to us. And trust me, once we really have full faith on something, we do it perfectly well.
O yüzden doğru yerde olduğumuzu
So we're on the right
yolumuza
track.
devam edin.
So keep going. Do not give up.
Ben de aynı şekilde
I totally agree with you.
belirtmem çok hoştu.
And that you are just so frank. Thank you for being that much sincere. I mean, My generation is totally different from your generation, how we perceive the world, and there will be so much environmental sensitivity. It will be more in the future.
Ya bir içinde bayağı iyi gidiyoruz.
We're doing really good. I'm sure we'll do it better. I mean, because we should do it in the best way possible. I mean, we know how it goes on with oil. I mean, we have import problem. And the easiest way for the energy problem in Turkey is to use the renewables. So good luck. An additional comment.
Sevdiğiniz sürece
As long as you love what you love your job, you will make money. Don't worry. Just be innovative, okay? Have innovative thinking,
devamlı iş çıkar.
and you always will make money out of it. And good luck.
Teşekkür ederiz.
Thank you.
Soru var gördüm.
There was a question there.
Vestas'a.
I guess question to Vestas, right?
I was just wondering, or I pointed the question also from a service point of view. It's the same question like the offshore plants.
Vestas Offshore'da çok ciddi
Vestas is one of the major players in offshore, and we have our turbines working on.
Offshore Türkiye
In offshore
yapılacak bir
is actually could be a new investment for Turkey, but we have offshore turbines in abroad, and we are providing maintenance. We have full faith on us. Of course, we need more experience on offshore. There's no doubt about this. But looking at the installations, offshore installations in Turkey, I mean, it is actually possible that we can adopt ourselves to offshore immediately. Just as an example, in Portugal, in one single offshore turbine installed, and the maintenance is performed by our service group, I mean, at the offshore, and Vestas is offering that.
Evet, başka soru var.
Any other question?
Benim sorum olmuyor.
I have no question but a suggestion.
firmacımızın teçhizat temininde ilk önce Türkiye'de araştırma yapmaları
I think our companies should first look for the Turkish market when they are looking for equipment, because if you want the machinery industry to develop in Turkey, you should first look for local companies. Well, everyone has a different perspective in life. I'm a person who really worked hard on this. But for logistic companies and the crane companies, the manufacturers should take us seriously. Cost advantage. I mean, we are ready to pay more, trust me. But, for example, we cannot get actually one blade trailer as local. There are manufacturers, trailer manufacturers, but there are certain technical specifications. They have to use specific steel and so on. I don't want to give name companies, but with regards our low deck investment, they asked for technical support from me, and I spent 1 week, and
dışında 8 ton yaptığı low beden.
to the low back of 8 tons in abroad. He said I could only do it 14 tons, and actually he asked for more money. You know where steel is purchased, you know the axis and everything, the hydraulics in the crane, everything is a standard. And we are ready to pay more. Maybe another example. For example, Ford has a new towing vehicle, and send an invitation to the logistics companies, and I actually send a manager there, and I actually ask for a test drive, because I pay a lot of attention to it. Ford is actually producing local engine. The design is also received awards and so on, but you know, we work hard on it, and you're supporting them, okay? You appreciate that. As Borusan Logistics in our fleet, we are also using the older versions, but as I told you, I mean, in blade transport, we are speaking about 73 meters, and these are the trailers that can only has an opening of 45 degrees, and technically, I mean, they cannot make the drawing about this. I mean,
bununla bunu taşıyayım dediğim
I mean,
zaman
saying that I do the welding, don't worry, it will carry.
o malı almak
I mean,
isteseniz de
even if you wish to buy it from your own country, you cannot handle it. I mean, it's very important. I mean, for example, a TWEC auction by the government stated that, I mean, there must be factories established again. We started tower manufacturing, same for Belay. I don't know, maybe it also should be considered. I mean, we're always speaking about the projects here in Turkey, but for Turkey is actually a major country in blade and tower export. And we're using the local ports. You know what they are doing it. I took a price from one port. I couldn't send it back to the customer, and I said to the company, I mean, let's give 3 of the blades out of 30, so I will pay for it. I mean, how am I supposed to give such a price quotation to my customer? As we all know about the prices abroad.
bu insanlardan
So,
ihracat yapacaklar, 2 katı, 3 katı para istiyor.
I mean, we are asking for to double, triple of the amount.
İzmir'de
In Izmir, for example, I think 300 billion euros of an export that we're speaking about in here. It's a problem to put them on the motorway. It's another challenge to use the accessory roads. I mean, the manufacturers, the suppliers, I mean, we talk to everyone. So
hep birlikte böyle yapmak.
it is something that we should all act jointly. All together we should do something. And otherwise the economy would only be growing by purchasing. It's not nice, but that's the fact. Yes, thank you. Maybe I can have a couple of additional comments. First of all, you are right. You are quite nationalistic about this, and I'm also happy to hear that. But as Hakan stated, we need a collective approach for this. Of course, I want my machinery park is all German. I mean, of course, I also would like to use local products. I mean, it's always the local investment that we wish for, but for example, a customer from abroad is making a natural gas, let's assume, power plant. They can, for example, bring their own machinery to the country. My government should say, no, we actually have an equivalence of this machine in Turkey equipment. You actually have to purchase it from the local companies. They should do so. That's the thinking that I'm saying. There must be a mentality protecting the local manufacturers. Trust me, everyone here will purchase locally. We all have the same perspective. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? I guess not. So,
Rüzgar sektörünün çok önemli bir alanında
we just talked to the experts, the panelists that contribute in the field, and you joined us in this session. Thank you very much.
tekrar hoş geldiniz. Sayın katılımcılara da
Also, thank you to the panelists on behalf of the association and on behalf of the guests. So, there will be a certificate ceremony. Thank you all.